This is the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by TheHoosier.com.
We're back for another edition of the Hoosier.com postgame wrap-up. I'm Drew Rosenberg. I'm joined by Staley. And the Indiana Hoosiers suffered a 20-point defeat to the Illinois, 71-51 on the road. It's kind of a weird game. Illinois had been one of the best teams, is one of the best teams in the Big Ten and has been all year. Came into it on the, two straight losses, the overtime loss to Wisconsin, lost to Michigan State, and then they got Kylan Boswell back. And, the numbers won't jump out for you, but they came out ready to go from the jump. Indiana played well early, but Illinois it felt like they had too much talent in the end.
Yeah, it kind of, I think coming into this game, you kind of assumed how the game was going to kind of go. Illinois just, it's a bad matchup for Indiana, right? And Illinois has a lot of talent. They have a lot of size. They pretty much are the perfect team in a sense when you build it, and especially, playing under a tough, physical Brad Underwood type of style, type of system. Like, they are the perfect team, and they're definitely a team, if they stay healthy, that could make a Final Four run for sure. But it was going to be a tough matchup for Indiana, especially when you look at, the post play and stuff. Sam Alexis has been great, but obviously when you've got, three giants around you and stuff, like, it is pretty hard for one guy on the Indiana side to really, kind of man the post down there. But Illinois, being a smart team that they were really good on offense. Indiana struggled. Felt like they just struggled really communicating and playing smart defense. Like, I said it a bunch on the boards. I think I even tweeted it out and stuff. But the amount of times that Connor Enright got switched on to a low block or whatever, was just way too many times, right? And I think that kind of goes to poor communicating on Indiana's side. So obviously, Illinois was able to take advantage of the size factor. But Lamar Wilkerson, 21 points, had a pretty good game as well. Didn't really get a whole lot of help, especially, the start of the second half where it felt like, Lamar was going to kind of put Indiana on his back. But obviously Illinois is just a team that, like, you have to pretty much play perfect and you have to get help around you. And Lamar Wilkerson didn't have that. He finished with 21 points. Tucker DeVries did end up with 13 points, but he didn't really shoot the ball very well. Sam Alexis finished with a respectable 11 points, 5 of 9 from the field. So other than that, it's just nobody else showed up. Nick Dorn has not been a factor.
Ever MIA.
Yeah, he has been, and I know we kind of talked about it a lot on our podcast, and maybe he's used as kind of like that decoy role and everything, but at some point you got to get away from that and you got to hit shots. And he was 0 for 5 from the field, only finished with 1 point, and that was off of a free throw. So other than that, nobody else really got anything going. Connor Enright didn't have any points. Didn't get anything from Taking Conroy coming off the bench. He only played a few minutes. So just a tough game for Indiana, right? It's on the road. Maybe they would have maybe fared a little bit better if this was at home, but still, I think Illinois, when you just look at, matchup by matchup, they're just a really tough team. And Indiana, they got it, they played a good first half overall, I think, but you start slow in the second half. It's pretty much game over, when that happens.
Yeah, it was a bad matchup for Indiana going in. We knew this coming into this game. Illinois is the biggest team in the country. Indiana is one of the smallest, Power 4 teams or Power 5 teams in the country. The rebounding, it was a big difference in this one. You mentioned it. I think it was Indiana was out rebounded by 15 offensive rebounds for Illinois. And in the first half, they didn't really punish Indiana. Like, you look at the stats, yes, they dominated the Hoosiers on the glass. They only had 4 second chance points off 7 offensive rebounds, where usually, you see that turn into more. And I think they had 13 second chance points in the second half, which, another big difference in this one. You mentioned Lamar Wilkerson. He needs help. Tucker DeVries wasn't bad when he picked up that second foul, which is a weird call. It kind of felt like it took him out of the game to an extent. He was playing well early in the game. He hit a couple threes. I think in the first half was 3 for 5 from the field. You want more from him as your second best player. He didn't have a bad game by any means, but it's, you're relying on Talkin DeVries to be a 15 to, 17 a game, around that range. And he hasn't been that for the last month. It feels like the jump shot is starting to come back with him, but Indiana needs someone else who's going to score. And Connor Enright, he did his role today, played some good defense, 6 assists, just through turnovers, but he's not a scorer. Tate Conaway, he's kind of working his way back from injury, as we all know, and it's, his scoring is really, he only played 4 minutes today. So, like, where is the scoring going to come from if it's not, outside of Lamar Wilkerson, if Tucker DeVries isn't going to be that guy?
Yeah, I mean, and kind of all signs kind of point to Nick Dorn, right? Like you need to step up, right? And you can't right now. You're proving to me, and I think from a lot of Indiana fans that focus in on this team. A lot of them could be thinking, Nick Dorn might be a one-hit wonder, right? He had that stretch of really good games, and then all of a sudden he's just disappeared, and then a lot of that is due to other teams, watching the film on Indiana and be like, hey, we can't leave this guy open. But it's not like Nick Dorn got bad looks today, right? He had some chances to really knock down some threes, get some momentum going for Indiana, and he just wasn't there. And obviously on the defensive side of the ball, it's one of his more weaker points of his game. So they definitely exploited that a little bit. I mean, the amount of times that Illinois beat Indiana off the dribble today, it's a lot. And obviously I don't have a stat for that and everything, but you can't look at, the points in the paint where it was 40 points that Illinois scored in the paint like today. Like that's brutal, right? And you mentioned, the offensive rebounding. Illinois just, took advantage of Indiana there. And, rebounding has never been Indiana's strong suit or whatever, but you can't give up the amount of offensive rebounds that Illinois was able to, grab against Indiana and expect to win on the road. It's just really, really hard to do that. When you're a team like Indiana, where you kind of have to play perfect, your shots have to fall at a consistent rate. You kind of have to hope that, team like Illinois is having an off shooting night, because it was just felt like that, when you start off the second half. I look at right at the start of the second half where Indiana didn't have any shots falling except for Lamar Wilkerson scoring that 7 points right off the bat, which he only ended up with 7 points in the second half. So a little rare from Lamar Wilkerson there when it comes to second half play. But you start off slow in that kind of 4-minute stretch to start off the second half against Illinois. Like it's not going to be pretty by any stretch of the means. And I think Indiana at one point maybe cut it down to like 12 points, but a lot has to go right for Indiana in that certain way. And, maybe, a few years down the road, Indiana will have like the matchups to be able to go against like a team like Illinois, but right now they just don't. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad with a lot of things that Indiana does right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret, we've mentioned it today. We've mentioned it all year. Indiana's undersized. And then you play a team like Illinois, and, they didn't have Stojakovic today, who's another one, but everyone but Boswell who played today is 6'6" or taller. Every single player. Stojakovic would have been another guy. Their entire rotation today. And when you look at, Indiana, where Tucker DeVries is, I think 6'6", and he is playing the 4 for you for big minutes, versus, Keaton Wagler is a guard on the other side who's the same height. It's a tough matchup for Indiana. And we saw Connor Enright getting, switched onto bigs. You mentioned it, him getting not even exposed, and it's not really his fault. What's he supposed to do when he gets switched onto one of the Avicic twins who are both 7 feet and just monsters above the rim? Like when you're, a 6'2" guard. I mean, it's not on Connor Enright. It just, the way this roster is built, there's flaws. And we kind of said it coming in. If Indiana was going to win this game, they needed to shoot well from 3, like better than well. I think Tucker DeVries, it was said on the broadcast, or not Tucker, Darren DeVries before the game told the broadcasters Indiana would need 15 threes, he thought, for them to win. 6 for 24 isn't going to cut it. It's not going to cut it against most teams, much less, Illinois, one of the best teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that 6 for 24 stat is pretty similar to a lot of the stats that we saw in these past few seasons of Indiana teams, right? And it's going to prove, like, if you're not hitting the 3 ball on the road, things are going to happen pretty badly. And it doesn't really matter what team in the Big Ten, as long if your shots aren't falling, like, and you're playing in a road matchup, like, it's going to be tough, let alone Illinois, who's, like I mentioned earlier in this recap, like they are a Final Four team. Like they are built for a Final Four run as long as they stay healthy, which they slowly are. They're getting back to health. So, it's just one of those things where, like, yeah, you can be kind of frustrated. Indiana got beat by 20 points or whatever, and they've been playing really good basketball up to this point. But at the same time, it's like you got to recognize, right, that like a lot of things have to go perfect for Indiana to win against a team like this, right? And you get a hostile road environment, which Illinois is one of the tougher places to play in the Big Ten. It's hard for Indiana, right? And especially with Lamar Wilkerson playing like an all, first team all Big Ten guy that he is, like, you need help around him. And you don't just need, Sam Alexis, Tucker DeVries. Yeah, they scored in double figures, but you need more out of them, right? You need Tucker DeVries to get up into that 17-point range. Like you mentioned, you need Sam Alexis to be that guy that, gets you at least like 13 or 14, right? He did do a good job, Sam Alexis, on the rebounding. He did have 8 rebounds, so I will give him credit for that, doing whatever he can there. But like, you need Nick Dorn. Like, you need him to be a guy that you can rely on to take pressure off of Lamar Wilkerson. Connor Enright get a few points here and there, and then Tate Conaway, I know he's coming back from a injury, but like, his up and down play, and a lot of it, I mean, mostly it's been down. If we want to make an argument there, like, you need more out of him, right? And you need guys to step up around him, and you need guys to recognize, like, hey, Lamar's doing all this stuff. Like, you can't just say, hey, Lamar's going to take care of us or whatever and stuff. You need to have some pride in yourself, and you need to get in and you need to make plays and take pressure off of Lamar. Until they can do that, Indiana may be an NCAA tournament team, but, until they can kind of figure that out, they won't be a team that can really make a run in the NCAA tournament, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then, I mean, like, you mentioned the rebounding. Sam Alexis had 8 rebounds. No one else in Indiana had more than 3. Then you go to the other side and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Illinois players with 6 or more rebounds. I mean, it's, we mentioned, like we've said, Indiana has to rebound as a team. And, they've done it to an extent, but again, like, it just has to be better. They have to be, like, more fight. I guess it's hard. It's hard because this is such an undersized team against the biggest team in the country, and it's just a bad matchup all around. And a lot of things would have had to go right for Indiana to win. And like we mentioned, Illinois coming off 2 straight overtime losses, they were going to come out firing today. We knew that. Indiana came out firing too. Indiana, that first 8 minutes, the way they played against a lot of teams in the country, even against an Illinois, like, if Illinois didn't come out red hot as well, Indiana could have easily opened that game up 10 points. But Illinois also came out red hot. And if, like, you could put the other way, Illinois easily could have opened that game up 10 points very quickly. And Indiana stayed in range for a while. But again, there's just too much firepower on the other side.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing is, obviously there's a few days in between of Indiana's next matchup, which is at Purdue, which will probably be an even more hostile environment to play at, than what Illinois was today. But Indiana, the good news is they match up a little bit better with Purdue, right? We saw that in the first game, against, where Indiana did get that, that first quad 1 win of the season against Purdue. So they do match up well against them. I think it'll be a much better Indiana showing, I guess you could say, for at least, 30 plus minutes or so. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, you just kind of got to flush it a little bit and you just got to kind of push forward and everything. And obviously Indiana's got five more games left in the regular season. So this game obviously doesn't really hurt Indiana's, NCAA tournament chances at all. Obviously if they would have won, they pretty much would have sealed their chances to be in the NCAA tournament, but still a lot of opportunity left for Indiana, to get another quad 1 win. The good news for them is, like, it looks like Wisconsin's obviously sneaking up to becoming a quad 1 win. So you kind of take the good with the bad, like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, it's just one of those games where it's just like, yeah, Illinois is really, really good. Indiana's not quite there yet. Kind of move on and see what Indiana can do these last 5 games.
Yeah, taking a look right now, I think Wisconsin is 3 spots out of the top 30 where they need to get in for the to be a quad 1 win for Indiana. So, it's getting close. But again, you don't want to be relying on a Wisconsin, to earn that quad 1 win. Indiana has chances. Like, there is opportunities in that schedule. I mean, you mentioned the last 5 at Purdue. We went into this games, at least for me, it was, if you get one, you're in a great spot. If you lose both, it's not the end of the world. Like, you're still okay. And there's still opportunities. You have to beat Northwestern. You have to beat Minnesota. You cannot lose those games. And then you have Michigan State coming to Assembly Hall. That is a heck of an opportunity to earn a quad 1 win. And then at Ohio State, another chance to earn a quad 1 win. If Indiana, 5 games left, got to go 3-2, I think. I think 3-2 is, a must if they're going to make it to the NCAA tournament.
Right, and you're definitely, your 2 wins, like you mentioned, has got to be Northwestern and Minnesota, right? And then Ohio State. Just don't put yourself in a situation where you got to go to Ohio State and it feels like, man, whoever wins this game is in the NCAA tournament, whoever loses is out. Just don't put yourself in that position. And you do that if you do lose to a Northwestern or Minnesota, because I think 3 of their last 4 games is at home, if I'm correct there. So plenty of opportunity there, and if you can get a Michigan State at home, like, that's great for your resume, and especially if you can just beat Purdue, at Mackey and have that season sweep, that's even better. So gonna be tough. I mean, it's not gonna be easy for Indiana. Down the stretch, they can't really take any games off or anything like that. They can't overlook an opponent, but Yeah, today not Indiana's best showing, for most of the game, and I think it needs to be kind of just like a wake up call a little bit to where Lamar Wilkerson's playing really really good, a dark horse Big Ten Player of the Year, but he needs help around him, and I think that's been kind of the constant theme of this whole entire season.
Yeah, I mean it was clear, the roster isn't enough at this point to contend for a Big Ten championship, to contend for national title. But like you see the vision, and Lamar Wilkerson, again, we've mentioned he's good enough to win you games, and he has. And you look at their resume, and at least for me, I look at 2 games like going back that I'm like, they're really going to want those back. It's the Nebraska game and it's that Minnesota game.
Yeah,
Indiana takes care of business in both of them. They're a lock to make the tournament already at this point. But those 2 losses, where they 2 games they really easily could have won, just really hurts the Hoosiers' chances.
Yeah. And I've even thrown the Kentucky game too. They kind of blew that one away too. So it's just kind of been the theme for this. I always felt like this team was going to be one of those teams where they're going to win some really big games, down the stretch, but also there's going to be some kind of head scratchers a little bit. And that's been kind of what Indiana's been this season. But, they got another opportunity on Friday, and we'll just kind of have to see, what Indiana team shows in a big time rivalry game.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Hoosier.com post-game wrap-up. For all things Indiana athletics, make sure you guys are following the Hoosier on 3 on Twitter. Subscribe to the Hoosier, premium, scouting reports, exclusive interviews, and message board access. You get guys like, Pete Nakos, Jamie Shaw, the top recruiting guys for football and basketball in there. Anytime there's anything they hear Indiana related, they're putting it there first, even before they're tweeting it out. So, you might follow them, have their notifications on. If you're in the boards, you're seeing it first. So, guys, make sure to subscribe. It really means a lot to us. We appreciate it. We love interacting with you guys on those boards. It's a lot of fun. Thank you once again for tuning into another edition of the Hoosier.com postgame wrap-up. We'll be back.